Hey guys, this is MEGADAN29, and today I'm coming at you with something a little bit different. Today I'm going to try to help you guys out with beating games and just give you 5 tips on what I do when I'm about to go into battle with these old retro games. Now what I say with this list, what I do mean is retro games. You might be able to use some of these with modern games, but I thought of these with the mindset of retro. So just keep that in mind as I go through these. Now if you guys watch my channel, you know that I do a lot of no death runs, a lot of playthroughs, and usually I tend to target very challenging games. And I think that's because of the reward. I look for the reward and I want to know that I've knocked those difficult ones off the list. So I thought that this would be a very helpful thing to just help any of you guys out that tend to ask me a lot of questions about exactly what do I do and what am I thinking when I'm about to play some of these difficult games. Another thing I wanted to note that I think is really cool about games is something that I may say is difficult, somebody else may say is not. For instance, if you put me on Dr. Mario or you put me on Tetris, guys, you won't see the same old Megadan. That is not something I'm very good at. Where you put somebody like Paul Tessie on Tetris, your mind is blown. So that's one thing that I think is cool. So hopefully these tips can help you in some way, and I'm really looking forward to your guys' tips back at me in the comments. But let's get started with number 1. Number 1 is very important, and these aren't in any kind of order. But number 1 is choose your weapon. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people, for NES standards, like to use your classic NES controller. Although I do think nothing's wrong with this, I prefer the dog bone. You guys know what I say. I never go alone, I always bring my dog bone. And the reason I say that is because this is just more comfortable to me. And it's important to be comfortable when you're going to approach something that's very difficult, when you're trying to beat something, like Ghosts and Goblins or something like that. What I like is I like the rounded offness of this, other than the square, and most of all, especially coming in on like Punch-Out and things like that, I like this D-pad a lot better because it's actually rose quite a bit. So it's easier to counter-attack and get back, and I just have better control with the D-pad. That is the main reason I use this. So it's important when you guys are playing your games. Find something that suits you. Don't be afraid to try aftermarket. Don't be afraid to try anything except for, you know me, I don't really tend to use turbo controllers or some sort of, I kind of feel like that's cheating. But if you just use something else that is the same thing, but it feels different, I would definitely say to do that. Be as comfortable as you can playing these games. Number 2, this is going to be a weird one and only works for some games. The first thing I check for in games when I get in is there time in the game? Now most games there are. When you're looking at Ninja Gaiden, Super Mario, obviously Punch-Out, things like that, there are time. And there's nothing you can do about that. You have to keep a pace knowing that you have that time. Stuff like Adventure Island, you have to keep an extraordinary decent pace because you will literally die from not eating the fruit. But there are games like Contra that you do not have time. And when people are trying to do things like no death runs that I've watched and things like that, they forget about that. They forget about that you can go into these boss battles and you can take your time. It's very, very important. Always check to see if there's time in video games. That is one thing I hate. Time in video games. Shouldn't be a thing. Number 3 is very important. And I do this with every single retro game that I play when I'm going to approach something I don't know. And that is always read the instruction manual. And with today, you can go on the internet and you can look up every single instruction manual you want to see. What I always do is I just go to Google, especially for NES games, and I type in Battletoads NES. And if I want to see that, it comes up as a PDF file, and I look at the whole thing, I scroll down, I read the whole thing, and that's what I do. Because I don't really look up things online. You guys know me for that. I try to keep things authentic. So I won't look up walkthroughs, I won't look up videos and things like that. I try to be as authentic as I can, like it was back in the 1985. And I try to play these games as if I really got them. So I So I read the instruction manual, and there's a lot of times in the instruction manual that there are moves, key moves that people don't even know when they're having a lot of trouble, and you can learn a lot of things from the instruction manual. Another main game that the instruction manual comes into key is Blaster Master. What's the problem with Blaster Master usually? Well, it's this huge world and people get lost and they don't know where to go, and by the time they figure out where to go, they die. And with limited continues in the game. So little do you know, in the instruction manual, there is a map that shows you exactly where to go to get to each different area. So it's very, very, very important to read the instruction manual. And also, with the manuals, always look them up too before you deem a game bad. Because a lot of times people say games are bad, and then there's key things in the instruction manual that they just don't understand. Things that they tell you what to do. So, make sure to always do that. Always read the instruction manual. Whenever you're going into unknown territory, number 4 is something I use with every single game. And that is, always go into unknown territory playing what I call defense. Meaning, literally get to a boss. So if I'm playing Contra for the first time, I was just playing Contra Hack not too long ago. And when I got to the bosses, I literally do not shoot. And I literally just see what he's doing to me first. And I just react on dodging before I go in and start to try to kill him. A common mistake people make when they're trying to beat bosses, especially in NES games, is they just attack, attack, attack. It's all offensive. Usually I feel like that's what the developers wanted you to do, because then you fall into all the traps of whatever the pattern is that the enemy has. So a lot of times, if I go in playing defense, I can beat bosses the first time I ever face them. I know Shadow of the Ninja helped me a lot do that too. I think I beat Shadow of the Ninja like my second or third playthrough of trying to beat it. And a lot of it was because I just didn't go into the battles all offensively. I definitely stayed back and felt out the battle and played defense. So, defense wins championships. And number 5, the last one I'm going to give you, is very important. This is key. This is key with retro. This is key with modern. This is key with every single game you play, and it's commonly messed up. Even by me. And that is, always play happy. And what I mean by that is, if you're in a bad mood or you had a bad day, don't go and try to take on a challenge that you're not mentally ready for. Because what you do in video games is, people get angry, people throw controllers, people cuss and swear, including myself, and it just makes you worse. It just makes you worse. Very, very, very unlikely do I see somebody get super, super raging and then they accomplish the goal, especially if they're taking on something that's very, very difficult. So what I would say is always just wait till you're in that good mood. And even that mistake is easier said than done. I make the same mistake lots of times, but always play in a good mood. I wanted to throw in one more thing too, and I thought it would help you guys out a lot. And that is, if you are not succeeding at something, it's okay to turn it off and go back to it. Especially use the password system. Make sure that if you're failing and failing and failing, sometimes it's better to just walk away for a little bit. Even if you're streaming, even if it's talking to the chat for 10 or 15 minutes. And just getting your mind elsewhere and then coming back to it. I can't even tell you how many times in just playing in my room normally that I have lost at something, been really, really angry, trying to be competitive with myself and defeat it, can't do it, and I try the next day or I try 4 or 5 hours later, and then I beat it first attempt. That happens to me a lot, and I think even people like me and Solid Nate was saying the same thing. I think that's a very common thing, and I'm not sure why that is like that, but save yourself the trouble. Sometimes just put it down and come back to it. Well guys, that's all the tips I got for you right now. If you have any other suggestions you want to put in, drop them in the comments. I would love to see what you guys do to prepare for games. I hope that these weapons I've given you help you in battle. And just know, you can beat anything. Don't ever think that you can't do it. Don't ever give up. Don't ever stop. Keep challenging the game. Win. Don't ever give up. I'll see you guys later.